You never see the shadow that kills you. You don't hear it. You don't taste it. You don't even know it's there. Until it's too late. Tonight, we begin with a story that could belong to anyone. In New York City, a 19-year-old girl is at a friend's apartment. It's late November. Outside, the city is alive, cars honking, neon lights, laughter echoing in the street. But inside this room, the story is very different. She believes she's taking one pill. Just one. It's stamped with the letters M30. She's told it's a Percocet, the kind prescribed for pain. She trusts the source. Why wouldn't she? It looks real. It feels real. She swallows it. And within minutes, the night takes a turn no one expected. Her laughter fades. Her eyelids grow heavy. Her breathing slows, then stutters. Her friends panic. They shake her shoulders. They call her name. They dial 911. Paramedics rush in. They work desperately. But fentanyl doesn't forgive. Hours later, her parents get the knock no parent should ever hear. Their daughter is gone. Not because of one mistake, but because of one pill that was never what it claimed to be. And she is not alone. In Arizona, a mother recalls the phone call that shattered her world. Her son, only 22, was bright, kind, and full of life. He struggled with pain after a sports injury, and thought he was safe when he took a pill a friend gave him. But safety was an illusion. That pill wasn't medicine. It was a counterfeit tablet laced with fentanyl, powerful enough to kill in microscopic amounts. He never woke up. And now his mother is left with memories, photographs, and a question that haunts her: why is this happening? These are not isolated tragedies. From the crowded streets of Los Angeles to the quiet suburbs of Ohio, from high schools in Texas to college campuses in New England, the pattern repeats. The same story, told in different homes. A single pill. A counterfeit dose. A life ended before it could truly begin. And the truth is as chilling as it is simple: the drug that killed them did not start here. It traveled thousands of miles. It was manufactured in secrecy, guarded by men with guns, hidden inside trucks, slipped through ports, passed from hand to hand until it arrived in the neighborhoods no one thought could ever be touched. Imagine this. A steel container sits on a dock in Southeast Asia. Its paperwork says it's carrying cleaning solvents, harmless industrial chemicals. Customs agents glance at the documents, check the seals, wave it through. But inside are the building blocks of death. Precursor chemicals, colorless, odorless powders, perfectly legal on paper. Yet in the wrong hands, they become the foundation of a synthetic drug so powerful, so concentrated, that a dose smaller than a grain of rice can silence a human heart. This container will travel across the ocean, pass through checkpoints, shift from ship to truck, truck to warehouse, and somewhere along the line, vanish into the underworld. Thousands of miles away, in the rugged mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico, a different scene unfolds. In a hidden warehouse, under the cover of night, men in gloves and masks move quickly. Barrels of chemicals line the walls. The air is sharp, chemical, suffocating. A single mistake, a splash, a whiff too strong, can kill the very people cooking it. But they work anyway. Because the profit is worth the risk. Here, the powders from Asia meet cartel ingenuity. They are cooked down, pressed, dyed, and stamped until counterfeit pills look indistinguishable from the real ones. In one night, they can produce tens of thousands. Each one flawless to the naked eye. Each one a potential death sentence. Then comes the crossing. Cartels don't send one load, they send 10, 20, 50. Some are decoys. Some are meant to be caught. But most slip through. A semi-truck filled with produce, a hidden compartment welded inside the frame. A private car with a secret floorboard. A drone carrying small packets over an empty desert canyon. Or a tunnel, carved in silence, stretching beneath the US-Mexico border, carrying death in plastic bags. For every shipment seized by Border Patrol, more make it through undetected. And each one that makes it through can flood an entire city with counterfeit pills. And then, the handoff. Dealers in small towns, street corners, even college dorms. They sell pills that look harmless. Some don't even know what they're truly selling. Others don't care. What matters to them is money. What happens after the sale is no longer their problem. But for the people who take these pills, that problem is permanent. At a party in the suburbs, friends gather. Music plays. Someone pulls out a plastic bag, shakes a few pills into their palm, and offers them around. Nobody pauses to question it. Nobody looks twice. Minutes later, one person is laughing, another is growing quiet, another is gasping for breath. Sirens will soon follow. Parents will soon be awakened by knocks at their door. And another obituary will be written. The question is no longer if fentanyl has reached your community. The question is, how far has it already spread? And how did it get there? Tonight, you will follow the supply chain, from its chemical birth on another continent, through the deadly laboratories of the cartels, across guarded borders, and into the hands of unsuspecting victims. By the end of this story, you will understand how fentanyl traveled halfway across the world, to arrive silently in your town. And you'll know the chilling truth: the next pill is already here.
You are watching True Crime Cartel Originals. Before we dive into today's story, I've got one small favor to ask. If you love deep, real stories like this, tap the like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment below telling us which city you're watching from. It helps more than you know, and it allows us to keep bringing you stories no one else dares to tell. Now, let's get into the story.
Fentanyl did not appear out of nowhere. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't a mystery. To understand why it is everywhere now, you have to understand what came before it. America has faced drug waves before: heroin in the 1970s, crack cocaine in the 1980s, methamphetamine in the 1990s, prescription opioids in the 2000s. Each left scars on neighborhoods, families, and entire generations. But fentanyl is different. Because it is not grown. It is made. It begins with the opioid crisis. For decades, doctors across the country prescribed powerful painkillers: OxyContin, Percocet, Vicodin. They were marketed as safe. They were not. By the late 2000s, millions were hooked. Families found themselves torn apart. Entire towns, from Appalachia to New England, were drowning in prescription opioids. When the government finally cracked down on prescriptions, many patients didn't recover. Instead, they looked elsewhere. Heroin surged in to fill the void. But heroin was expensive, bulky, and risky to traffic. Cartels noticed the problem. And they found their solution. Unlike heroin, fentanyl could be made in a lab with chemicals, not in a field with poppies. No farmers. No harvests. No seasonal risks. Just chemistry. For cartels, it was perfect. A kilogram of fentanyl could be produced faster, cheaper, and shipped in smaller packages. That same kilogram was worth millions of dollars when cut, diluted, and pressed into pills. And because fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin, smugglers only needed a fraction of the space to move it. More profit. Less risk. A perfect storm. But here's the terrifying part: fentanyl wasn't new. It was first synthesized in the 1960s, intended for surgery and severe pain management. Doctors used it under controlled hospital conditions. Cartels didn't invent it. They weaponized it. They saw what hospitals were using. They saw how powerful it was. And they realized, in the black market, no drug could compete. By the early 2010s, fentanyl started appearing mixed into heroin. Dealers added it because it was cheap and addictive. But users didn't know. Overdoses spiked. Then came the pills. Counterfeit tablets, identical to the real thing, began flooding the U.S. market. They were stamped to look like OxyContin, Xanax, Percocet. But they weren't pharmaceuticals. They were poison. And no one could tell the difference. Not even trained eyes. By 2016, fentanyl overdoses were climbing faster than any drug in U.S. history. The CDC reported thousands of deaths in just a single year. Within 5 years, that number would multiply. And cartels? They didn't slow down. They doubled down. Because the profits were unlike anything they had ever seen. So where did it all come from? The answer lies far from American suburbs and city streets. The precursors, the chemicals that make fentanyl possible, are manufactured in China and India. Often, they are legal. Often, they are hidden in plain sight. Shipped in containers labeled as solvents, cleaning agents, or research materials. Bought by front companies that vanish as quickly as they appear. They arrive in Mexico, where the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel take over. Inside hidden labs, those chemicals are transformed into the counterfeit pills that will eventually make their way into your community. This is the cartel supply chain. Global. Hidden. Ruthless. And it's not just about money. It's about power. Whoever controls fentanyl controls the future of the drug trade. Cartels know this. Law enforcement knows this. And families feel the cost every single day. But the story doesn't end at the chemical factories or the cartel labs. Because for fentanyl to reach you, it has to cross one of the most guarded borders in the world. And that's where the story takes its deadliest turn. The reality is this. For every pill seized at the border, countless more slip through. For every bust reported on the evening news, dozens of shipments are already on their way. And the ones that do make it through don't just end up in big cities. They end up in small towns, schools, college campuses, and neighborhoods just like yours. That's why fentanyl is different. That's why it's everywhere. That's why it's here. And so the question isn't simply why fentanyl. The question is, how did it get here? To answer that, we have to go deeper into the world of secret cartel labs, smuggling routes, border tunnels, and the invisible highways that carry death from one country to another. Stay with me. Because the next part of this story will reveal exactly how a handful of chemicals, shipped halfway around the globe, transform into pills that look safe, but are not. The story of fentanyl doesn't begin in a border town. It doesn't even begin in Mexico. It begins half a world away, in factories you'll never hear about, in cities you'll never visit, making chemicals you've never seen. Chemicals that, on paper, are harmless. But in reality, they are the seeds of death. In China and India, thousands of chemical plants produce everything from pharmaceuticals to fertilizers. Among them are factories capable of synthesizing fentanyl's building blocks. For ANPP. NPP. ANPP. To the untrained eye, they are just acronyms. To cartels, they are gold. These compounds are not the drug itself. They are the precursors, the base ingredients that, when cooked in cartel labs, become fentanyl. And here's the loophole: many of these chemicals are legal. Or at least, they exist in a gray area of regulation. A company in Wuhan, China, might list a chemical as for laboratory research only. A supplier in Mumbai, India, might call it for industrial cleaning. The shipments are wrapped in paperwork, labeled as something benign: solvents, adhesives, paint thinners. And because global trade moves millions of containers every day, customs officers can't possibly open and test them all. So the barrels pass. The boxes move. The ships leave port. And hidden among them, death sets sail. Sometimes the precursors are sold openly online. A quick search can reveal websites offering research chemicals for sale, no questions asked. Some even advertise discreet shipping worldwide. Payment is taken in cryptocurrency. Delivery is guaranteed. Behind the glossy websites are shadowy suppliers, operating from temporary addresses, constantly changing company names to stay ahead of regulators. Chinese authorities have cracked down in recent years, under pressure from the US. But the trade hasn't stopped. Instead, it's adapted. Now, instead of shipping finished fentanyl directly, suppliers send the ingredients. It's a game of smoke and mirrors, Change a molecule here, rename a chemical there, and suddenly it slips past the law. Once the precursors arrive in Mexico, the cartels take care of the rest. Here's the scale of the problem. Every year, more than 25 million shipping containers move through U.S. ports. Only a fraction are ever physically opened. Imagine trying to find a single poison apple in an orchard the size of the world. That is what customs faces every day. And the cartels know it. They exploit it. They thrive on it. Meanwhile, back in Asia, the chemical factories operate in plain sight. On the books, they're legitimate. They make industrial solvents, fertilizers, dyes. But after hours, a portion of the production shifts. Employees who know what they're really making are paid extra to look the other way. Some don't even know. Some don't want to know. Once the barrels are loaded, they move through freight forwarders, ports, and customs like any other shipment. Sometimes they are split into smaller consignments, mixed with legitimate goods, electronics, fabrics, furniture. Other times, they are sent directly to cartel contacts in Mexico, disguised as cleaning agents or agricultural supplies. Every step is protected by layers of deception. So by the time the shipment reaches cartel territory, it looks ordinary. Legal. Invisible. But once those barrels reach cartel hands, everything changes. In hidden labs, those chemicals are mixed, cooked, distilled, pressed. The harmless becomes deadly. This is the origin of fentanyl. Not the labs in Sinaloa. Not the dealers on the street. But the shadow factories in Asia, where a single order can set off a chain of death that ends in your town. And here is the most chilling truth. Even as you hear this, more containers are already on their way. Some will be caught. Most will not. And inside those containers are the beginnings of the pills that will later be pressed, sold, and swallowed, never knowing they hold the power to stop a heartbeat forever. This is the source. This is where fentanyl begins. But the journey is only halfway done. Because now, those chemicals must be transformed. And to see that transformation, we have to step inside the hidden laboratories of the cartels themselves. Far from the ports, hidden deep in the mountains and jungles of Mexico, the real transformation begins. Here, in remote valleys patrolled by armed men, the cartels run laboratories that are as secretive as they are deadly. These labs aren't shining pharmaceutical facilities. They're crude, improvised, often little more than tin-roofed shacks and barns. But what they produce is worth billions. Inside, barrels of chemicals unloaded from shipping containers are stacked against mud brick walls. The air is thick with the sting of ammonia and acetone. Plastic drums, rusty pots, propane burners, makeshift ventilation pipes, all arranged in a chaotic, lethal assembly line. Here, cartel chemists, some trained, most not, cook the precursors into fentanyl. The process is both simple and catastrophic. Many of these cooks aren't scientists. Some are dropouts. Some are farmhands. A few were once students in chemistry but were recruited, or forced, into this work. They follow handwritten recipes passed down from cartel bosses. Recipes that can kill them with a single mistake. Spill a drop, inhale too much vapor, mismeasure by a gram, and the cook collapses on the floor, never to rise again. And yet, they keep going. Because in cartel territory, the penalty for failure is often worse than death by accident. Cartel supervisors, sometimes armed and masked, watch every move. They ensure production never stops. Even if it means workers breathe poison day and night. Even if it means dozens of cooks die in silence, buried in shallow graves nearby. The only thing that matters is output. The product, once crystallized, is tested crudely, sometimes on lab animals. Other times, on humans. Reports suggest that kidnapped addicts are occasionally forced to sample the batch. If they survive, the shipment goes forward. If they don't, the batch is adjusted. This is not science. This is alchemy of death. When the powder is ready, it's pressed into pills using machines bought online. These machines, imported from China or ordered through U.S. websites, can churn out thousands of counterfeit tablets in an hour. They are designed to mimic real pharmaceuticals, OxyContin, Xanax, Percocet. They look legitimate. They feel legitimate. But each pill is a ticking bomb. Because there is no quality control. One pill may contain almost nothing. The next may contain enough fentanyl to kill 10 people. Here lies the terror of fentanyl, its potency. A few grains, smaller than sugar crystals, can shut down breathing. Cartel cooks work without precision scales, scooping powders into presses like bakers handling flour. The result? Russian roulette in pill form. Each tablet could be a harmless placebo, or a funeral. From here, the pills are packaged in bulk. Plastic bags. Cardboard boxes. Hidden compartments in trucks. Some shipments never leave the mountains. They go straight to local dealers, fueling addiction in nearby towns. Others begin the long journey north, carried in convoys, hidden in vehicles, guarded by sicarios with rifles. For the cartels, this is industry. The mountains of Sinaloa, Guerrero, and Michoacan are their factories. The workers are expendable. The profits are eternal. And while the world sees only the pills on the street, here, in the hidden labs, the true machine of death hums constantly, 24 hours a day. And then comes the next stage, distribution. Because a product, no matter how deadly, is worthless unless it reaches the customer. So the pills, the powders, the packages, they must leave the mountains and cross into the United States. How do they do it? That's where the cartel's ingenuity, ruthlessness, and control of the border comes into play. And this is where the supply chain evolves again. From jungle shacks to bustling border towns. From crude pill presses to sophisticated smuggling routes. This is the moment the cartel's poison leaves their stronghold and begins its journey into your town. For the cartels, production is only half the battle. The real challenge is getting their poison across the border. Every pill, every ounce of powder, must make it past the most fortified frontier in the world, the U.S. Mexico border. And yet, every single day, shipments make it through. Because for every wall, the cartels build a tunnel. For every checkpoint, they find a blind spot. And for every seizure, 3 loads slip through unnoticed. Let's start with one of their oldest methods, hidden compartments in cars. Ordinary vehicles, sedans, SUVs, pickup trucks, are transformed into smuggling machines. Secret panels built into gas tanks. Packages welded inside door frames. Pills packed into spare tires. To a border agent, it looks like a family car. To the cartels, it's a Trojan horse. And here's the danger, one car can carry tens of thousands of pills. Enough to flood an entire town. But the cartels don't just rely on small cars. They also use commercial trucks. Semi-trailers loaded with produce, electronics, furniture, and buried deep inside, the packages of death. Customs officials have giant X-ray machines, but the sheer number of trucks makes inspection nearly impossible. For every one truck stopped, hundreds pass unchecked. And sometimes, the fentanyl is hidden so cleverly, even the X-rays can't see it. And then, there are the tunnels. The Sinaloa cartel, infamous for its engineering, has dug some of the most elaborate smuggling tunnels ever discovered. Some stretch for half a mile, reinforced with steel beams, equipped with lights, ventilation, even rail tracks for moving cargo. They begin under an innocent-looking warehouse in Mexico, and emerge in an abandoned building on the U.S. side. While Border Patrol scans the surface, the cartel moves silently beneath their feet. Technology has given the cartels even more tools. Now, they use drones, small, fast, and nearly invisible against the night sky. Each drone can carry a few pounds of fentanyl, enough for thousands of deadly doses. Launched from just across the border, they fly silently over fences, drop their cargo, and return before anyone notices. It's a deadly game of cat and mouse, played with machines in the dark. But sometimes, the most expendable tool is also the most brutal, human mules. Men. Women. Even children. Some are paid, others coerced, and some deceived into carrying packages across the border. They swallow latex-wrapped capsules, strap packages to their bodies, or walk across checkpoints with hidden loads. And if they're caught, the cartels lose nothing. But if they succeed, they've delivered another payload of poison. For Border Patrol, the fight is constant. Every car could be a carrier. Every truck a Trojan horse. Every drone a silent invader. Agents work long hours, dogs sniff every line, scanners sweep every container. But the sheer scale of traffic makes perfection impossible. And the cartels know this. They exploit the odds. For every bust the DEA announces, for every pile of seized pills displayed at a press conference, there are 3 more shipments that got through. And here's the nightmare, it only takes one of those shipments to change the future of a town. One hidden compartment in one car can deliver enough fentanyl to kill thousands. That's the scale. That's the shadow war. Meanwhile, cartel scouts watch the border from hilltops with binoculars, radios crackling as they track patrol movements. Corrupt officials on both sides are sometimes paid to look the other way. Every gap, every moment of distraction, becomes an opportunity. And through those gaps, the poison flows. The cartels don't just smuggle drugs. They smuggle inevitability. For every checkpoint, a trick. For every wall, a tunnel. For every drone spotted, another flies lower. The game never ends. And somewhere, hidden in that endless tide, is the shipment that will reach your town. The one pill that will sit in someone's palm. The one pill that will never let them wake up again. This is the smuggling chain. This is how fentanyl crosses the line. And this is why, no matter how hard the fight, the poison always finds a way in. Next, we follow the pills as they spread through American cities, into nightclubs, suburbs, high schools, and into the hands of unsuspecting users who may never realize their first hit is their last. They don't stop at the border. They're already here. Once the shipments cross, cartel networks inside the United States take over. These aren't random freelancers. They are structured cells, often made up of relatives, trusted friends, or longtime associates. They blend in. They rent apartments. They run small businesses. They look like neighbors. But behind closed doors, they're logistics hubs for a billion-dollar empire. The cartel uses networks of middlemen to move product from city to city. One cell delivers to Phoenix. Another to Dallas. Another to Chicago. Shipments move like clockwork, hidden in cars, trucks, trains, even mail packages. Each handoff is quick, impersonal, and ruthless. Trust is built not on loyalty, but on fear. Fail to pay, lose a package, talk to the wrong person, and you disappear. On the ground, distribution often falls to street gangs. These gangs, already controlling neighborhoods, become the perfect retailers for the cartel's product. The cartels provide supply. The gangs provide access. Together, they turn city blocks into markets of death. And because fentanyl pills are disguised as legitimate pharmaceuticals, the street-level dealers don't need to convince anyone. The pills sell themselves. But it doesn't end with gangs. The pills flood nightclubs, college campuses, suburban house parties, even high schools. One dealer might think he's selling Xanax. Another might believe he's offering Oxy. But the truth? Sometimes, even the dealer doesn't know what's really inside. That's the chilling reality. The person selling the pill may have no idea they are handing someone their last breath. As the product moves, so does the money. Money laundering operations are the lifeblood of the system. Cash piles up in small increments across hundreds of cities. Then it's funneled back to Mexico, disguised as remittances, wired through shell companies, or even smuggled back in bulk. Banks, casinos, real estate, used car dealerships, all become laundromats for blood money. By the time the funds reach cartel bosses, they look perfectly clean. Meanwhile, local dealers keep pushing. On social media, fake profiles advertise pills as safe, legit, pharma-grade. Emojis replace words, a snowflake, a pill, a blue heart. Deals are made in DMs, deliveries arranged like pizza orders. It's fast. It's hidden. It's deadly. From bustling cities to quiet suburbs, the supply chain adapts seamlessly. In New York, dealers slip pills into nightclubs. In Kansas, they arrive at rural high schools. In California, they flow through college dorms. No region is safe. No community untouched. Law enforcement agencies scramble to keep up. DEA task forces raid stash houses, seize pill presses, intercept packages. But for every bust, the cartels send more. And for every raid, another stash house opens. It's like fighting a shadow, strike one, and three more appear. Here lies the horror. By the time the pills reach street level, there's no way to tell the difference. A student thinks they're buying Adderall to study. A partygoer thinks they're taking ecstasy to dance. A patient thinks they're getting pain relief. But one pill is enough. And there's no second chance. And all the while, the money flows back south. The cycle feeds itself. Production. Smuggling. Distribution. Profit. It's a machine that never sleeps, powered by greed, sustained by addiction, and hidden in plain sight. But the most chilling part? Sometimes, the dealer doesn't even know what's inside the pill they're selling. Which means the person buying it has even less of a chance. This is how the cartel's poison spreads. Not in jungles. Not in labs. Not in tunnels. But in your streets. Your schools. Your homes. And the victims? They are not faceless. They are not nameless. They are your neighbors. Your friends. Your family. Which leads us to the next part of the story, the faces of the crisis. The lives fentanyl has already claimed. Behind every statistic, there is a face. Behind every overdose, there is a story. And behind every pill, there is a family that will never be the same again. Across America, fentanyl claims lives every single day. Most of them never saw it coming. Most of them never even knew what they were taking. Consider a teenager in Ohio. He thought he was buying a Percocet from a friend. Something to ease the pain of a football injury. But the pill wasn't Percocet. It was fentanyl, pressed to look identical. One pill. One swallow. His parents found him the next morning, unresponsive. He never woke up. Or the young woman in California. She was a college student, studying late for finals. A classmate sold her what she thought was an Adderall, something to help her stay awake. She took it in the library, surrounded by friends. Minutes later, she collapsed. Her classmates thought she fainted. By the time they realized the truth, it was too late. Every 5 minutes, another American dies from a fentanyl overdose. That's over 100 deaths a day. More than 70,000 lives a year. These numbers are staggering, but the grief is not in numbers. It is in the voices of parents, siblings, and friends who replay that final moment, again and again. Sometimes, the victims are not addicts. They're not even looking for drugs. They're looking for relief, painkillers after surgery, a pill for stress, something to sleep. But in a marketplace flooded with counterfeits, even a single pill from the wrong source can end a life. And the cruelest twist. Even the dealer doesn't always know. Take the case of a group of high school friends in Arizona. One ordered Xanax bars online. They looked real. They felt real. They split them at a sleepover, laughing, joking, unaware. By sunrise, 2 were dead. The others woke to find their friends cold beside them. The grief ripples outward. In one town, a father stands over his son's grave. In another, a mother leaves her daughter's room untouched for years. Communities hold candlelight vigils. Faces of the lost are printed on posters, banners, murals. Entire neighborhoods feel the weight of a single poison pill. And yet, despite the devastation, the pills keep coming. Because in cartel boardrooms thousands of miles away, the calculation is simple. How much can be made? How much can be moved? How much can be sold? The lives lost are not factored in. They are collateral. Background noise in an empire of profit. This is the suspenseful truth. A boy in Kansas dies because a decision was made in Culiacan. A girl in Los Angeles collapses because a chemical order was placed in Wuhan. A father in Boston buries his child because a smuggler made it through one checkpoint in Texas. Every overdose has a chain. And that chain leads back to the boardroom of the cartels. And that is what makes fentanyl different from every other drug crisis in history. It is not just addiction. It is not just choice. It is a silent ambush. A Russian roulette disguised as medicine. A weapon of mass destruction hidden in a single pill. And the victims never see it coming. This is the human cost of fentanyl. Not statistics. Not headlines. But children. Friends. Families. Futures erased. And as the funerals multiply, one question remains. Why can't this tide be stopped? To answer that, we must follow the money, from American streets back to cartel treasuries, and beyond, into the shadow economy that keeps the entire machine alive. When most people hear the word cartel, they picture cocaine. Pablo Escobar. Colombian jungles. The 1980s. But today's cartels are different. Their empire is no longer fueled by coca leaves. It is fueled by chemicals. By fentanyl. And its rulers are not folklore legends, but businessmen of death. At the top of this empire are men whose names rarely appear on the news, yet their reach extends into every American town. They live behind fortress walls, surrounded by private armies. They rule through fear, money, and blood. Every pill, every gram, every overdose, it all traces back to decisions made in these hidden chambers of power. These men have a brutal formula. 1. Secure the chemicals from China or India. 2. Process them in clandestine labs across Mexico. 3. Smuggle them across the border by any means necessary. 4. Flood the U.S. market and collect the profits. Billions of dollars, with almost no production costs. Fentanyl is not just powerful. It is perfect, for them. But power this immense is never peaceful. Inside the cartels, loyalty is enforced at gunpoint. Enforcers, sicarios, are tasked with sending a message, obey, or die. In some towns, they drive through in convoys, masked, armed, leaving bodies hanging from bridges as warnings. This is not just business. It is terror as a business model. Journalists who dare to write the truth live under constant threat. In Mexico alone, dozens have been murdered for exposing cartel activity. Newspapers are burned, reporters vanish, families silenced. One journalist once said, "We don't report on cartels to inform the public. We report to stay alive." Even undercover agents are not safe. One DEA operative infiltrated a cartel supply chain, posing as a buyer. He later revealed, "Every meeting felt like my last. If they suspected me, I would never make it out alive." Agents live double lives, balancing family dinners with surveillance operations that could end in a single gunshot. The cartel leaders themselves are ghosts. They rarely appear in public. They use layers of intermediaries, multiple safe houses, encrypted phones. Their brutality is matched only by their caution. To many Mexicans, they are both untouchable kings and invisible phantoms. And yet, their power depends on one simple truth: fentanyl is better than cocaine. It is cheaper to make. Easier to smuggle. More addictive. More profitable. A kilo of cocaine might sell for tens of thousands. A kilo of fentanyl, cut and pressed into fake pills, can generate over $1 million. That is why the cartels shifted their empire. That is why they risk everything. And for those who refuse to obey this empire, the punishment is swift. Whole police departments have been corrupted. Local mayors have been assassinated. In some regions, cartels have more power than the government itself. A whisper against them can mean your entire family disappears overnight. This is the cartel power structure: money at the top, blood at the bottom. A chain of command forged in terror. An empire built on fentanyl. And a machine that does not stop, even when thousands of lives are lost. Because for them, fentanyl is not a drug. It is a business strategy. And as their power grows, so does the shadow they cast across borders. This is not just crime. This is not just drugs. This is organized power, political, economic, and lethal. But even the strongest empires have vulnerabilities. And the question is, where does all that blood money go? To answer that, we follow the money. The war between cartels and law enforcement is a shadow conflict, a chess match where every move can cost lives. On one side, the DEA, the FBI, Border Patrol, local police. Armed with technology, surveillance, and international partnerships. On the other, cartels with money, firepower, and endless innovation. And every encounter feels like a battle against an enemy that never truly dies. Inside the United States, infiltration is the first line of defense. DEA and FBI operatives embed themselves into cartel supply chains, posing as buyers, middlemen, even smugglers. They meet in warehouses, nightclubs, back alleys, always under the threat that one wrong word could expose them. Some infiltrations last years. Families back home never know how close their loved ones come to death every day. But infiltration carries a brutal risk. One sting in Texas went horribly wrong. The agents thought they were meeting a low-level supplier. Instead, they walked into an ambush. Gunfire erupted. The sting turned into a firefight. 2 suspects were arrested. But the target escaped. The cartel had known they were coming. Someone had tipped them off. At the border, the war intensifies. Agents discover tractor-trailers filled with hidden compartments, cars with dashboards stuffed with powder, and even drones flying across rivers in the dead of night. But for every load they seize, 3 more slip through. And one of those could be the shipment that poisons an entire town. The cartels innovate faster than law enforcement can adapt. One year, it's tunnels stretching for miles beneath the border, complete with ventilation and rail systems. The next, it's submarines moving along coastlines, undetectable to radar. It is a never-ending game of cat and mouse, except the mouse is armed, wealthy, and ruthless. For agents on the front lines, the fight is deeply personal. Some lose colleagues in shootouts. Others watch cases collapse because of corruption, bribes paid to border officers, judges, even local police. One former DEA agent confessed, "We weren't just fighting the cartels. We were fighting their money, their reach, their ability to infiltrate our own system." And still, undercover stings continue. Agents set up fake deals worth millions, wiring warehouses with hidden cameras, waiting for the moment the cartel takes the bait. Sometimes it works. Massive seizures make headlines. But sometimes, the cartels are one step ahead. When a deal goes wrong, agents know backup may be minutes away, but a bullet takes only seconds. The cartels retaliate in their own way. Informants are hunted. Families are threatened. Entire towns are silenced with gunfire. For every victory the DEA claims, cartels answer with new tactics, new leaders, new supply chains. It is a cycle of violence with no clear end. Law enforcement likens the battle to fighting a hydra. Cut off one head, a cartel leader arrested, a lab raided, a tunnel discovered, and 2 more grow back. New leaders rise. New routes open. New chemistry labs emerge in the mountains. The machine never stops. This is the reality. Every raid, every arrest, every bullet fired is just one moment in a war that has no front lines. And while agents fight to save lives, the cartels fight to expand their empire. The question that remains, who has the stamina to outlast the other? Because in this war, survival isn't about weapons. It's about endurance. And the cartels never seem to tire. This is law enforcement's struggle, brave, relentless, but never-ending. And yet, there's another battle, just as critical, fought not with guns and raids, but with stories and silence. The battle for truth. The next question: what happens to those who dare to expose the cartels, and live to tell the tale? You may think this story is about cities. About New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. But fentanyl doesn't just stay in the cities. It seeps into small towns, quiet suburbs, rural counties where everyone knows everyone's name. It is already closer than you think. In towns with populations under 10,000, overdose deaths have doubled in the past 5 years. Funeral homes that once handled accidents and old age now bury teenagers, young parents, veterans. The local paper doesn't have enough space for the obituaries. One sheriff in West Virginia described it simply: "It's not numbers anymore. It's faces I know. People I grew up with. Families I go to church with." Imagine your local sheriff's department, already stretched thin, now spending every night reviving overdose victims instead of fighting crime. The myth is that fentanyl belongs to junkies in dark alleys. But the reality is far more terrifying. It shows up at sleepovers, at high school parties, in college dorms, in the glove box of a car parked right next to yours. This is not an urban crisis. It is an everywhere crisis. Shocking statistics. In America, fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for adults between 18 and 45. More than car accidents. More than guns. More than cancer. Think about that. In the prime of life, this is what kills more people than anything else. And still, the pills keep moving. Because in small-town America, dealers are not strangers. They're classmates, co-workers, neighbors. In some places, the person selling the pills also coaches Little League, or sits 2 pews away in church. One overdose in a town of 5,000 shakes the entire community. The high school principal has to call an assembly. The local pastor preaches about it on Sunday. Parents whisper to each other in grocery aisles, wondering if their child is next. The ripple effect is enormous, because everyone knows everyone. And here's the chilling truth. You might not know it's fentanyl until it's too late. Because the pill looks real. The powder looks real. No smell. No taste. No warning. It could be in your town tonight, and you wouldn't know until the sirens blare. For families left behind, the grief never ends. A mother in Kansas keeps her daughter's bedroom untouched for 3 years after she overdosed on what she thought was a prescription painkiller. A father in Montana speaks to his son's empty chair every night at dinner. These are not statistics. These are neighbors, friends, family. This is why fentanyl is unlike any other drug crisis in history. It doesn't respect geography. It doesn't respect class. It doesn't matter if you live in a city high-rise, a farmhouse in the Midwest, or a cul-de-sac in the suburbs. It's already here. And it's not leaving. This is not someone else's story. This is not a headline on the news. This is your town, your street, your neighbor, your family. And the most haunting question: if it's already here, how do you fight something you can't even see? The fentanyl crisis is not an accident. It is not a temporary wave. It is a cycle. And like every cycle, it feeds itself. On one side, demand. Millions of Americans looking for escape, for relief, for something to numb the pain. On the other, supply. Cartels with endless incentive to deliver exactly what people crave, at the highest profit margin in the history of narcotics. This is the heart of the problem. As long as demand exists, supply will follow. And the demand is massive. Pain, anxiety, stress, addiction. Millions turn to pills or powders, legal or illegal, hoping for a quick solution. But fentanyl is not a solution. It is a trap with no exit. Governments have tried. Decades of the war on drugs. billions spent on border security. Thousands of arrests. And yet, fentanyl pours through. Because policies focus on seizures, on supply, on cracking down. But they rarely address demand, the desperate hunger that fuels the market. Every policy is met with a counter. Ban one chemical, and the cartels tweak the formula. Shut down one smuggling tunnel, and they dig another. Arrest one kingpin, and two more rise from the ashes. It is a hydra, cut off one head, two more grow back. Even international cooperation struggles. China cracks down on precursor shipments, the chemicals that make fentanyl. But suddenly, the shipments come from India. Or they arrive mislabeled as industrial cleaners. The cartels pivot overnight, adapting faster than laws can change. Meanwhile, in the U.S., communities remain overwhelmed. Police respond to overdoses every night. Paramedics revive the same people again and again with naloxone. Hospitals fill with victims who never even knew they were taking fentanyl. It feels endless, because it is. The economics are impossible to beat. A kilo of fentanyl costs just a few $1,000s to make. But once pressed into counterfeit pills, it sells for over $1 million. The profit margin is so astronomical that no crackdown, no raid, no seizure can ever outweigh the incentive. And so the cycle turns. Demand feeds supply. Supply fuels addiction. Addiction creates more demand. Each overdose, each death, each family shattered, and still, the machine keeps moving. Because at the core, fentanyl is not just a drug. It is an industry. Here is the haunting suspense. Even as you watch this video, a new shipment is already on its way. A truck rolling toward the border. A drone crossing a river. A pill pressed in a lab deep in the mountains. By the time you finish watching, it may already be in your town. And that is why the fentanyl crisis feels unstoppable. It is not just crime. Not just addiction. Not just policy failure. It is a cycle with no clear end, unless something far bigger, far bolder, breaks it. Until then, the shadow grows. And the question lingers, echoing in every town, every family, every funeral. Who will be next? The cycle continues. And it will not stop, unless we find a way to break it. This story doesn't end here. Because even as governments scramble, as cartels shift and as families grieve, the drug itself is evolving. Fentanyl was just the beginning. Chemists inside cartel labs are already experimenting with new analogs, chemical cousins, even deadlier than what's already flooding the streets. One of them is already here. In the summer of 2025, U.S. border agents intercepted a shipment unlike any they had seen before. Inside, a powder so potent that a single teaspoon held enough lethal doses to wipe out an entire city. They called it a super fentanyl. Stronger, faster, and harder to detect. And experts say, that was just the test batch. For every load seized, 3 more slip through. And with variants like this, even one shipment is enough to change everything. Imagine it, a pill so powerful that a single mistake in dosage doesn't just overdose one person, it wipes out dozens. Cartel chemists are chasing that nightmare. And they are close. Officials warn that America is not ready. Detection tools at the border can barely keep up with regular fentanyl. These new analogs slip past scanners. They dissolve into liquid. They ride in through ordinary shipments of cleaning products, paint, even baby formula. Everyday items hiding death inside. And while law enforcement races against time, the cartels race faster. Because in their eyes, innovation isn't science. It's survival. It's dominance. It's profit. The new variants are not accidents. They are the future. But here's the terrifying part. Some of these new variants have already been detected, not in Mexico, not at the border, but in small towns across the United States. A college dorm in Ohio. A house party in Oregon. A suburb in Texas. Unlabeled, untested, unstoppable. The DEA says they don't even know how many versions are out there. Dozens? Hundreds? All it takes is one wrong pill, one wrong night, one wrong choice. And it all connects back to a decision made thousands of miles away, in a hidden cartel boardroom. This is the cliffhanger. Because right now, as you watch this video, shipments are already moving. Trucks rolling down highways. Containers crossing ports. Drones buzzing over rivers. And inside them, the next pill, the next powder, the next variant. Will it be stopped? Or will it reach you, before anyone can? And here's the haunting truth. This story doesn't have an ending. Because the ending hasn't been written yet. Each seizure, each arrest, each new chemical, it's only another chapter. The cycle spins, the shadow spreads, and the question grows heavier. Who will be next? The next pill. The next powder. The next name. It could already be here. And the story is still being written. This story is still being written, but what happens next depends on us. Awareness is the first defense. If you've made it this far, you already know more than most people ever will. But knowledge kept to yourself saves no one. So share this video. Let your family, your friends, your community know the truth, before it's too late. And if you want to stay informed as this story unfolds, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the next chapter may arrive sooner than anyone expects.